Craigslist holds tons of valuable data on jobs, housing, and marketplace items, but scraping at scale can get tricky with CAPTCHAs and IP blocks creeping in. Today, I'll show you how to extract Craigslist data easily. To follow along, you'll need Python 3.7 or higher, the Playwright library, and some residential proxies. If you don't have Python yet, get it from python.org and follow the installation instructions. Once you've got Python, open your terminal and install Playwright and Chromium. Now, let's get some proxies. Head to the Decodo dashboard and log in. On the left panel, select Residential Proxies. In the Proxy Setup tab, configure your location and session preferences. For this tutorial, we want rotating sessions to get a new IP with every request. Copy your proxy credentials. You'll need these in your script. Next, create a project directory. In that same folder, add a new Python file and open it. Now, let's look at the code. All three scrapers for job listings, housing, and marketplace share the same foundation. So, I'll walk you through the common setup first and then show you what's different for each category. First, import the libraries we need. Start with Asyncio for running Playwright asynchronously. This means page actions won't block each other. Next, import Playwright Async API to control a Chromium browser. We'll use the CSV package to save our results to a file. Last, import URL join from URL libparse to build full URLs from relative links. Now, set up your proxy configuration. Create variables for your username, password, and server details. Don't forget to replace the placeholder values with the ones from the Decodo dash. Then, define the main scraping function. In our example code, we'll use either scrape Craigslist housing, scrape Craigslist job, or scrape Craigslist for sale. This function takes a URL and max number of listings. The main scraping function also launches a headless Chromium browser and creates a context with proxy authentication. Then, we navigate to the target URL and wait for the page to load. Here, we wait for the listings container to appear on the page. Now we'll scroll the page to load more listings. We set up counters to track progress. Here's where it gets interesting. Craigslist uses infinite scroll, so we need to load more listings by scrolling to the bottom repeatedly. The script checks if new content appears. If the count hasn't changed or we've hit our limit, we stop and print a warning. The following lines scroll to the bottom and wait 2 seconds for new content. After scrolling, we get all loaded listings and limit the saved data according to our max listings parameter. Now, the code extracts data from each listing. We start by getting the location from the first div. After this, the process becomes different for each Craigslist listing type. Let's start with housing listings. The title and URL extraction uses multiple selector options. Craigslist's markup varies across different cities and categories, so we try 4 selectors from most specific to most generic. Once we find the needed element, the loop breaks. Do the same for the date by trying multiple possible selectors. We also extract prices using fallback selectors with the same for loop logic. Finally, we get the bedroom info the same way. Then, we take all the extracted data and add it to our results list as a dictionary. If any listing fails, we skip it. After this, we close the browser and return the results. The following lines define the save to CSV function. It writes the data with proper headers and UTF-8 encoding. Now, create the main function. Set your target URL and the number of listings you want. We also add a message that will be printed in the terminal once the scraping starts. Now, call the scraping function. If no listings are found, you'll get this message in your terminal. Print out each listing with all its details. Finally, save the scraped data as a CSV file. With the last 2 lines, when you execute the file, asyncio.run launches our main function and handles all the async operations. That's all for scraping housing data. Now, let's move on to job listings. The process is almost identical, but we're extracting different data fields. The title extraction tries multiple selectors because Craigslist's HTML varies across categories. Once we find a matching link element, we check if the title is wrapped in a span tag. If it is, we extract from the span. If not, we get the text directly from the link. Then we grab the href and convert it to a full URL. The date comes from the first span in the meta div. If the element doesn't exist, we default to an empty string. We find the meta div and create an empty list to store compensation and company data. If the meta element exists, we use JavaScript to extract the compensation and company data. This is needed since the information is scattered across text nodes and spans. We loop through all child nodes in the meta div, First, we skip the initial span, which contains the date we already extracted. Once we are past the date, we start collecting content. If we hit a button element, we stop because buttons come after the info we want. For separator spans, we add a dot character. For any other spans or text nodes, we grab the trim text. Finally, we join all the parts into a single string and convert it from JavaScript back to Python. This gives us the complete compensation and company info in one field. We clean up the compensation data by removing extra whitespace and any leading separator dots. If nothing was found, we use not applicable as a default. Then we add all the job data to our results list. If any listing fails, we skip it. Like before, close the browser and return the results. This function writes our data to a CSV file. Decwriter creates the header row from our field names, then writes all the listings. The main function sets our target URL and the number of listings we want. We call the scraping function and wait for results. If nothing comes back, we print a message and exit. The following code prints each listing to the terminal for quick verification, then saves everything to CSV. Finally, these lines run the script when you execute the file. Now, let's scrape Craigslist Marketplace. Scraping this listing type works similarly to housing or jobs postings. We just have to tweak selector choice to get the correct data. First, we try multiple selectors to find the product title link. Once found, we check if the title is in a span tag or directly in the link. Then, we extract it. We also grab the URL and convert it to an absolute path. The data extraction works the same way. We try multiple selectors and stop as soon as we find a match. Price uses the same fallback approach. We try 3 different selectors until we find one that matches. Then, let's add all the extracted data to our results list. If any listing fails to extract, we simply skip it and continue to the next one. Then, we close the browser. The save function writes our data to CSV with 5 columns matching the fields we extracted. We set the target URL to the cars and trucks category and specify how many listings to scrape. You can adjust this according to your needs. The scraper runs and returns the results. If nothing is found, we exit early. We print each listing to the terminal for quick review, then save all the data to CSV. And finally, these lines run the script when you execute the file. That's all for the code setup. To run any of these scripts, save the code as a Python file. Then run it in your terminal. The script starts, launches the browser in the background, and begins scrolling. Once scrolling completes, you'll see the title, location, date, price, and other fields for each item. The CSV file is now in your working directory, ready to open. And that's it. Now you know how to scrape Craigslist housing, jobs, and marketplace listings. Find the complete code for all 3 scrapers in the blog post linked below. And if you need residential proxies for scraping, get started with a free trial from Decodo.